We're going to talk about how severe is your skills gap. And with us today is Shannon Burke. She's the Executive Director, President of North America Process Technology Alliance. Shannon spent 11 years in manufacturing in various roles with Lubrizol, and prior to that, she practiced law. And with her on stage is Theron Williams, Sr. He spent 32 years in the energy industry. He's held many roles and currently the America's Learning Solutions Manager, Chemicals and Products for Shell USA. He assures competence, expands individual and organizational capabilities, and equips leaders and individuals with the tools and mindsets to become their best. Please welcome Theron and Shannon.
Thank y'all very much. Let me get some action here. Oh, you know what? There we go. Okay. Yeah, so did you want to start with the your intake?
Before we start, I need everybody to stand up. So I am a learning and development person. I like to facilitate. We've been here all day, sitting down. I'm older than 50, so that means I need to move this body. Some of you look like me, and so, and some of you don't. So if you can kind of just stretch, echo that safety. Stretch this way. Let's stretch that way, and give yourselves a hand. So you can see this is going to be interactive, and so get ready to get engaged, all right? So today, Shannon and I are going to talk a little bit about this, how severe the gap is, but I don't think it's going to be a big surprise, but we're going to give you some data. But we're going to start out first with a lens or a perspective of the why this gap is happening. We're going to then share some data with you. We're going to engage you, and then we'll kind of share a little bit of the things that we believe can help, if that makes sense, okay? So this first slide is about the industrial revolutions. And I guess the story I'd like to kind of carry with you is we're starting out in the 1700s, but if you go back to the 1600s or so, agriculture, so we think about cattle and you think about farming was the way that we did work or lived. And the products that we made pretty much took care of our families and our immediate community. But then the first revolution comes in on mechanisms, and you see that the train, right? So that meant now the products that I made, I can go further to share, which meant I expanded the group of individuals that I gave my products out to, which meant we needed to have more people. So that was a shift in skills needed from agriculture to mechanics. From the from the first industrial revolution to the second industrial revolution, you're talking about 86 years that we went from mechanics to mass production. Again, that was a shift that had to happen with skills. And then we moved from the second industrial revolution to the third, where we are now with automation, and again, another shift. And then from third to fourth. Now, my point here is we've been here before, the skills gap that we're talking about. But the difference is the span of time between the gaps. So if you see between the first and second and third, it's an average of 90 years. And if you looked at it from a work life or a career normally is about 30 years, right? So when you think about 30 years, 3 decades of being able to transform skills from one person to another, to coach, mentor, to show, to be able to answer questions. You had people that were in organizations like me, 3 decades, 32 years. Then I know people, I know things, I've seen some things. And I heard somebody earlier talk about how the difference in safety. So for us in the Shell world, you know, when I first got in, we were talking about incidents and first aids. Now we're measuring potential incidents, near misses. So we are much more proactive in what we're doing from a safety aspect. And so that's the shift for us, right? So, but now this last generation, or this last revolution went half of the time of 42 years. So then now it's transferring skills it becomes a little bit more difficult because you don't have the maturation, you don't have that innate ability to be able to take that information and bring it across. So for us, right now, even there's some speaking of the fifth industrial revolution, which is around 11 years now. So having the right skills to be able to assure that we're meeting the needs of the day. So when we looked at this, we added a lens from what I would say our conventional fuels of oil and gas to now what I call energy or emerging energies, whether we're talking about wind, solar, or hydrogen. It's a different way of getting work done. This fifth revolution is somewhat it's being spoken about the Internet of Things. So it's more digitally oriented, right? And some of the data we're going to see is going to kind of show us that a little bit. But the whole point here is we've been here. Yes, there's a severe shift, but I think if we're intentional and we're strategic about what we're doing, we can meet the needs.
All right, now we would like to gather some data from you. We'd like to know, how prepared do you think that your company is for the impending skills gap? And if you'll just use the QR code and let us know what you think. Are you not at all prepared? Are you partially prepared? Do you have some things in place? Or do you feel that you are, for the most part, completely prepared and ready for what is coming? We'll give it a little bit longer, and then we'll move to looking at some actual data that comes to us from the Manpower Group. It's an employment outlook survey done as of second quarter 2023. Theron?
So before we move to that next slide, I'd like us to take maybe 5 minutes at your tables to have that dialogue as to where are you, you're ready, you're not partially, and then the point here is to really just to test with the table as to where are you, and we're going to ask a couple of people that we haven't heard today to share a couple of thoughts about where you are, and then we'll move on to the rest of the data. So 5 minutes. If we had music, then we would probably play Michael Jackson or something, you know.
So for me, we shared that early notification of retirement is the best opportunity to help fill that skills gap. And so when we do, or when we're able to implement that, then we certainly are ahead of the game. But then, of course, there are situations where it's not known, and then trying to prepare for that with other avenues is what we've experienced or trying to perform.
Thank you, sir. How about right here?
So at SABIC, we work at SABIC, and we've realized that this is a problem, the skill gap, so I think that's the first step. Awareness drives action for us. So we've seen that we've got the right attention now, and we're looking at options. We've begun to ask the right questions, and so we've begun to drive action towards what needs to be done, and this session is definitely helping.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I think one of the things that has really been impressed upon me is that there's an inevitability that we will not have the number of bodies that we want. And we can get involved at high school and do all the things which we will do and will help to move the needle, but the bodies won't be there, which means we're going to have more AI and technology in the process to help the high-tech process workers better troubleshoot and manage the process, because there will be fewer highly trained process operators. There's the inevitability of the body count means that the only viable solution, all the other things will help, but the real solution is put more technology and AI to help as a troubleshooting tool, because they can pull all of the various parameters from the process together to help the technicians realize, no, we're probably looking at that valve. That's what it's got to be based on all the data. That, I think that's going to be the savior is technology and AI.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very good. We'll get a little more into that as we move through the slides. Maybe one more table in the back.
So we're kind of going through a transition of, I'm not going to say older workforce, I would say experienced workforce. We have an expansion going on, so we're moving experienced individuals to that unit while onboarding a lot of new individuals. So we've seen a lot of things just through the operation of our unit where A lot of things weren't documented. It's a newer process. So as we've learned things, they may not have always made it to the very end of the training, the SOPs and so on. So we've had some trips recently that easily preventable, or something tripped and we couldn't get it restarted at the time of fashion because the crew on didn't have that little tidbit of info that we needed. They'd make a phone call and get it back 2 hours later. We've lost product, so on and so forth. So that's at least the big thing we're handling right now, going through this gap, really.
Thank you so much on that.
That's very true. And, I know we've all heard about the impending turnover tsunami. And in fact, some organizations have already started experiencing that. I know Lubrizol did due to some different financial issues. But if you haven't already started documenting the tribal knowledge from the experienced SMEs in your facilities, you would definitely want to start doing that, along with the considerations of AI, because that's something we really struggled with at Lubrizol, was to find an effective way to document that tribal knowledge. We had tanks that might only be opened every 15 years for maintenance, and sometimes that could be a surprise and not always a good one. So just wanted to pass that along, even though it's a little bit off topic for what we're doing here. And I would like to hear from the one person who thinks they are completely prepared, because I'd love to hear more about that. Does anyone want to speak up? Okay.
Actually, my name is Ahmed. I'm with Vuvu. I'm taking care about the Middle East. I'm taking myself as an example. So when I joined the company, I don't have any idea about what we are doing or what the solution about. And I got on board, I believe, in 2 or 3 weeks maximum. So that's what I mean, that we are completely.
Okay.
So that's you got to be ready from sales and technical perspective from zero, from scratch.
Okay.
So yeah, I believe it's a good example to hear.
It is a good it is a good example, and it's a nice position to be in. So we're going to look at some data now from the Manpower Group. As I mentioned, it's from second quarter 2023. And it's not a big surprise. It's more of what we've heard, but it just gives us some concrete numbers to look at. So this is this particular image is from all industries, all different types of industries. And you can see that the highest increase in expected hiring is over in the Northeast at 35%. I think most of us in the room are interested in the region of the East and West Gulf Coast. And you can see there that while all of these regions are reporting a strong hiring need, for our particular area, we're looking at an increase of 28%. And see if I can make this work. There, okay. Yes. This particular chart is all hiring and all in different types of industries in the nation. And we're about to look at different sectors. So this chart shows the different types of talent that are expected to be the most in demand. And again, this is across the globe. So this isn't just the nation. And you can see that the highest reports of demand are in the IT fields, which goes along with AI and the other tools that we expect to turn to try to breach this gap that is coming. I think most of us in this room are in the areas of industrial or manufacturing, and you can see that the demand for increase in talent is expected at this particular point in the year to be at about 31% increase in the number of positions. So this particular graph here it's global, and the interesting thing to me about this is this is across all industries, but nearly 4 in 5 employers are reporting that they have difficulty finding the talent that they need. And that puts us at a 77% of employers are having difficulty filling the roles that they have open. Now, the particularly interesting thing is that we are here in the Gulf Coast region. I would hazard a guess that the idea of workforce development is not new to anyone in this room. We are lucky in that, I believe Jim mentioned earlier, it might have been Chad, that there are over 200 facilities up and down the Houston Ship Channel in a 12 square mile area. So workforce development and finding the talent that we need has been something that we've been working on for a while now. It's not a new idea. Now, if you go to other areas across the nation and across the world, workforce development is a newer idea because they haven't really had the industry that we have here, so they haven't needed to find talent to fill those roles in their industry. Now, the reason I point this out is because we have been working on workforce development in this region since 2010. And if you look at the numbers are, the need for people is expected to be double this year compared to 2010. And again, this is across all industry, not just our industry, but I would say it's an indicator that we need to do more and find other ways, which is what we're here working on today. So we would like to know what are some challenges that might be hindering your organization from being prepared? Is it a lack of eligible, competent candidates to fill the roles that you have open? Is it a competitive pay scale? I was speaking with someone over the weekend that's opening a facility in Nebraska. He is having a hard time explaining to his leadership team why they need to increase their pay scale, because they just aren't really buying into the idea that they need to do that to be competitive. Or is your issue perhaps competitive benefits? Or is there some other issue? Please let us know what you're struggling with in your organization.
All right, folks. So if we can have Miss Madonna in the back. Yes, I called you out.
All right. So we're at a college, but we work with industry directly. So we talked about from the industry perspective, because that's a lot different if we talked about the college perspective. But from industry, I think there's a lot of organizational limits that companies put on themselves that hinder them from getting the right talent. For example, a lot of the companies that we deal with still require degrees, full process technology degrees. So there's a lot of people that they're missing out on that could be, successful candidates. Although I would never say that on the college campus, because I work for a college. I want everybody to get a degree. But that's one thing, and that's a limit that the organization has placed on themselves.
Thank you. That's a good point.
And we have the talent, and we feel like our pay is competitive and the benefits. We think it's more generational. The gentleman at Lyndale who spoke about, he's been with the company for 45 years. He started as an ops trainee and matriculated to director of talent. You just don't see that anymore. So we have this new generation that comes in that looks to excel and be promoted within 2 years, or they're willing to go across the street for $1.50, not truly understanding the full value that's offered with the employer as much as we show them. And then I think I was talking to someone that spoke about the boomerang piece, that they go over and they take that $1 across the street, then they realize, oh, it's not that good, so now I'm coming back.
Thank you. That's good. About this table right here, right there.
We just kind of echo the sentiment over there for redefining expectations for your employees, where not necessarily all jobs require degrees, or you're missing out on some people who are willing to learn rather than an extremely qualified person on paper who thinks they know everything. So,
thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody has a burning, wants to just kind of put one more? All right, you can go to the next one. These next couple of slides are talking about hard skills, and I love the idea of core skills versus just soft skills. And these are the skills that are identified as the highest needs right now. So let's say from a hard skills standpoint, IT and data, operations and logistics, engineering, sales and marketing, and HR skills. These are the 5 that are out there that will help not our industry, but overall in the workforce. If we looked at the core skills, the soft skills, then we're looking at the critical thinking and analysis, reliability and self-discipline, creativity and originality, reasoning and problem solving, and leadership and social influence. Those are the things that, where are they being taught? Maybe that's the first question when you think about these more core skills. If you're in some type of leadership programs as a kid, or Boy Scouts, sports, and you're the captain or the coach or what have you, then you can glean some of these skills kind of just intuitively. But to be able to give them a formal framework around each of these soft skills or these core skills would enable them to be much better, much more effective in communication. Over my time at Shell, I started out as a process operator. From a process operator, I went into the frontline leader role. The shift in the skills I needed, hard skills from being the operator to being a leader, I had to bring in more of these core skills. How do I have my critical thinking or actually transfer that to my frontline employees so that they can deliver better, so that we're working more safely, we're actually making sure that production is happening. Moving from a frontline leader role and then to a more senior role requires much more of these other core skills to be able to communicate more effectively, to be able to influence and lead differently. And how do you get your people to think more creatively, to be able to bring some originality to it, but to be able to look at this data and say, okay, this is where we're going to have to go in the future. So as our folks move, as our industry moves from being where we don't even have to touch any valves anymore because AI is in place. And so then what are the skills for the operators and for the craftspeople that we're coming in? Is that going to change? Is the mindset that we have about how we do our work in our industry going to be consistent? Or are we going to take the lead from what we've heard earlier about reliability, about how we've gone to 980s, right? So you've changed the work schedule, man. You know, the people that are coming in that we're trying to hire, they have more options, and as a result, they have more demands. So that's when we think about the hard skills and soft skills, that comes into play, but it also comes around to how are we going to engage that. Specific to our industry, when you think about industries and materials, 76% of the organizations are reporting. So this is just people saying this is where we are, that they're finding difficulty for talent for those skills: reliability and self-discipline, critical thinking, leadership, creativity, and reasoning and problem solving. I think this is a good, what I'm loving about today is I'm hearing a lot of what the challenges are with different industries, different groups, but I'm also hearing some of the solutions that maybe Tesla is talking about, of how quickly they're using micro learnings to incorporate and build their folks up. Intrigued about employee being able to manage their own mandatory training, so that once that, and it all spoke to me as I'm hearing it more towards the mindset of our organizations, the culture that we cultivated. What about it will we have to shift to? Which kind of is the root of really this question. When you think about your organization, where you are today, in lieu of some of the information you just shared, what's the strategic direction for you to acquire talent? Is it that you're going to have AI, which means it's going to minimize a portion of the people you're going to need? But even with AI, human beings will always be needed. It's just in a different capacity. So we want to do the same thing here. Just ask this question, same at your tables. It doesn't just have to be around the age piece or how, but really when you think about what your strategic direction is for this talent acquisition, what are some of the top 2 or 3 things that you're looking at? All right, folks, thank you all so much. So how about the table all the way in the back? Not that far in the back.
Well, we work for Vuvio, but the Gen Z, people are different, they learn differently. So that's been something that we've seen. I've seen it my younger cousins, and it's just interesting how we're bringing them on board. So adopting new technology for that, it's changing the culture. So it's, having people come on board and learn differently and adapting to that, because that's where it's going.
Thank you, sir. You can pass it to the next table. Right here. The guy with the red shirt looked like he's just excited to share. Yeah.
We work in Deer Park, so we have the luxury of being able to partner with San Jac College. So I think when we talk about how do we find out what our plan is for talent acquisition with the operators, and that's what a lot that I do as far as the onboarding process. We are fortunate enough to work with San Jac and kind of have that relationship with world-class facilities. So we don't really have, I would say, that big of an issue with talent acquisition compared to maybe some of our other sites who are more remote and may not have a San Jac that's providing, leading the way in P-Tech training.
Thank you. You need to get that man on a commercial. How about this table right here? Yeah.
Well, so yeah, we're very top heavy with employees with 25, 30 years experience, and over the past several years, we've had a lot of attrition. And as those numbers grew, we decided to take that as an opportunity to help our culture out by looking for the new talent with the right attitude, perspective, and approach to work that we would like to see our company become. And so we're looking for that in the interview rooms. We've had mixed results just going on, what the resume said, and it had a good point there, Christian. So we've had to filter out some folks with very nice looking resumes that didn't bring the attitude that we were looking for. And we were quite surprised by folks that had more of the right perspective and approach to work versus maybe the exact skill sets on the resume. So we're using the new employees, the new generation to help shift our culture into a direction where we desire it to be.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My takeaway, and I want to make sure I'm clear, the mindset of the people is starting to take more precedence than the skills, or is it both and?
Balance there, because so we bring in folks with industrial experience or the degree, right? And so with that kind of checks off, they're not going to be totally disoriented when they come into our plant. They know what equipment is and what process is. But yes, as far as in the interview process and the selection process, we're looking for that perspective.
Appreciate it.
And what company are you with? Okay.
We used to be called Albemarle, but we have recently renamed our Catalyst and Performance Chemicals division to Ketchen. It's still the old, if you're familiar with the old Ethel on Preston and Pasadena, and we also have a Bayport facility in LaPorte, but both of them are in the same division now. New name, new identity is Ketchen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, then give y'all hands and it look like we got them all, huh? So when we think about strategy, right, there's a perspective of the right now, the intermediate, and the long term. And as you're engaging and starting to think about how we prepare for this skills gap and to be able to bring in individuals, I'll give you a perspective that I've been working on at my organization. So we heard about high school and community college. Well, we're moving down into the middle school. Why would you go to middle school? So the parents and the grandparents go to the middle school. And what I found is that over my course of doing outreach and trying to get folks in, is the parents and relatives are the ones who are going to help guide those kids into this industry or guide them away. The second part of it is the industry's image hasn't always been great. And there has been a great shift in it. We have to have our narrative about who we are, how we help this world, and how we engage. So that's another part of that. So first, you get lower into the education system or to the grades, you're connecting them with the parents. When you get to the education system, now you're looking at and having conversations with counselors, because these are the other people who give direction to these students in regard to where they want to go and how they want to get there. So that's the external perspective of how I would take care of trying to draw more into. When you come into the AI piece is a perfect example. When you look at one of the graphs we had earlier showing that we have less people coming into the business, I think that the other part we have to do is think about our structure. Is my organizational structure designed for the future? Or is it designed for yesterday? And what is it I'm willing to let go of that's going to enable us to have a life and be, to be here in the future? So that's just from one aspect of the people bringing in, and then maybe I'll give you two other pieces around leadership and then your cultural environment. So your cultural environment is it going to enable this Gen Z to come in to your organization and flourish, or are they going to be ostracized and put to the side? One of the things we used to say is when you came into the organization and you saw a senior person and you had an idea, he'd tell you, hey, be quiet and stand by your locker till you get a couple of years. And so that environment is not going to be conducive to keeping people, because again, they're going to have a lot of choices. So you think about the culture that you have, you think about your leadership, how are we developing them to get to where they need to be? You have your strategy that connects to somebody's purpose, and the rest of this stuff it'll come along the way. So just wanted to kind of maybe give you that little piece of thinking about what that strategy looks like for you. So we talked about the gap. I think that the piece I'll pull in on this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you think about it, that from a physical needs to safety, now that there are more jobs than there are people, there's safety there. It's just a matter of where you want to work. That love and belonging, esteem and self-actualization is that space when we talked about earlier. People want autonomy at the job. They want to feel valued. They want to get recognition. And if we're understanding what those things are and we're creating that in our culture, then now we are maintaining. We're going to make sure they maintain a safe working environment. You build the relationships between peers, leaders, and direct reports. You have a practical program around recognition. And I heard that earlier about, if it's something as simple as just lunch or having people come in, employee of the month, I didn't think about that one. That's a good one. Some of the things we have at Shell just within our structure is what we call SRAs, Service Recognition Awards. And that can be done on a dollar amount or on a percentage of their salary, depending on what type of work they did. It's normally around something performance driven that adds value, right? Or something they've done for other people. And maybe the last thing is in supporting career growth, it has twofold. There's one for the individual, but it's assuring that you have the right people in the right position to deliver and engage your organization along the way. So we just wanted to share that piece.
Yeah, and I just want to add a few things. So this, the 4 bullet points here are the result of a study on how to reduce turnover in your manufacturing workforce. I don't think anything here is a big surprise. But when you layer it on top of the recent studies that have been done on how to attract and retain the Gen Z generation, then it becomes more interesting. We all know that our safety records are important. Keeping it in the pipe, our emission reports are important. They've always been important, but they've grown in importance. And in a recent study done through LinkedIn's, it was an employee well-being report, approximately 60% of the approximately 1,500 Gen Zers that were surveyed, 60% of them said that they would avoid applying for jobs with employers that have even a perceived negative impact on the environment. So when you take safety reports and emission reports and TCEQ data, and you combine that with the general media negativity towards industry, I think, Theron alluded to that, but that's something that we need to approach in a more positive manner. I know that TCC and the ACC have image improvement plans moving forward and things that we can do to have a more perceived positive outlook. But that is going to be important, and it's going to affect our ability to attract and retain a younger workforce. Another interesting thing here is support that one of the ways to maintain and retain our manufacturing workforce is to support career growth. In this study, 71% of the Gen Zers certified said that they expect to be promoted between 6 months to 1.5 years after starting a new role. Now that made me smile. I'm old, but I think that's kind of an accelerated route to promotion, but it is a real expectation, and we need to be cognizant of it. Just one final point here, that this new generation sees opportunities to learn and grow as the top driver of work culture, and 76% stated that they believe that learning is the key to a successful career. So I think that many of the employers represented here today mentioned different things that they were doing to expand and help grow the careers of their people. And so that's definitely a plus and will help to attract and retain talent. And we just wanted to leave you with one thought. So you know, Theron pointed out the ideas of the Industrial Revolution and the changes that we went through at those times. And the good thing is that humans have always been able to adapt to new technology and to better ways of doing things, to adapt and overcome. And in history, in this way, although that time frame is becoming smaller between turnovers and revolutions, we can do it again. How are we going to do it? How do we overcome the challenge? Well, it's going to be a combination of technology and innovation and human ingenuity. And I think that that is the final segment in our day today that we will be moving to now, unless any of you have any questions. All right, thank you all very
Okay,
much.
thank you.